Let's move on and touch the most critical issue of the boardrooms at present. The exciting panel discussion is going to be on ESG and philanthropy boards. Once again, a super interesting topic that the team has decided for all the audience to, take the insights and information about the same. So, environmental, social, and governance. ESG refers to the three core themes in measuring the sustainability and societal impact of an investment in a company. These criteria also help in determining the future financial performance of companies. As the businesses grow, the priorities between environmental, social, and governance priorities may change. But the board level, what should matter is not the short term objectives, but the long term sustainability. With this idea, the philanthropy boards have emerged. To elaborate more about this, we have with us today Mr. Neeraj Kulshestra, Ms. Simantini Kote, and Ms. Chandra Iyengar. I quickly round off, give an introduction to Mr. Neeraj Kulshestra, Ms. Simantini Kote, and Ms. Chandra Iyengar to take the deliberations ahead. So, to talk about Simantini Kote, nearly 4 decades of experience in the development sector, out of which 20 years of direct implementation with NGOs, 12 years of bilateral aid and UN assignments, and 8 years in CSR and sustainability consulting. Completed several professional assignments across all the continents alongside managing own family farm as well. She is farmer by choice and very grounded and deeply invoiced in CSR philanthropy. She is also independent director on boards of Suzlon Energy Limited, Prabhat Dairy Limited, Sunfresh Agro Private Limited, Anik Financial Services Private Limited, and Cheese Land Agro India Private Limited. We welcome you onto our platform. Then is Mr. Chandra Iyengar. Mr. Chandra Iyengar is an officer of the 1973 batch of the Indian Administrative Services, that is IAS. Over the course of her career, she has led several departments in the government of Maharashtra and the government of India, such as women and child development, higher and technical education, rural development, and health. As the Secretary of Women and Child Development of the Government of Maharashtra, she was responsible for drafting and implementing the first ever state policy for women's empowerment in India. That is really commendable. Prior to retiring in 2010, Mrs. Iyengar was the Additional Chief Secretary, Home Department for the Government of Maharashtra. She has also served as chairperson for the Maharashtra Energy Regulatory Commission. She is currently serving on various boards as independent director, including companies like Arihant Superstructures Limited. We welcome you, Mrs. Chandra Iyengar. Then we have Mr. Neeraj Kulshestra onto our platform. He has over 30 years experience in financial services industries, ranging from general insurance to stock exchange operations, which includes equity trading, clearing and settlements, derivatives trading, clearing and settlements, inspection, index services, and now commodities. He has managed Indian onshore equity listed derivatives and fixed income operations and equity TSG offshore operations for US, EMEA, and Asia. In BSE, currently, he is the Chief Regulatory Officer responsible for corporate compliance, member compliance, and surveillance, etc. Earlier, he was the Chief of Business and Operations at BSE. Thank you, Neeraj, for representing Bombay Stock Exchange and for the continuous support to us always in various initiatives. It really means a lot. So I once again welcome all the three panelists. Thank you so much for your time, taking out time from your busy schedule and giving this time to all the viewers, to all the audience, thousands of people who are joining us right now and will be listening to you in future as well via various social media platforms, so that your insights will definitely help them into their future in deciding stuffs, in taking grabbing information and knowledge as much as possible. So over to you, Neeraj ji, for the wonderful session ahead, and look forward to great sharings by you all on the topic. Thank you once again.
Yes, thank you, Manisha, for this wonderful introduction of the panel. I'm indeed, happy to have all these eminent personalities with us. I know they have been really, really very busy, and taking out time, especially for us, has been really a great value addition for us. So thank you so much, Simantini ma'am, Chandra ma'am, Neeraj ji. Thank you so much for this. And now, as yesterday or day before yesterday, we had a very, very detailed interaction on this critical aspect, that what is CSR, what is ESG. And I know Simantini has been doing amazing, amazing work. She's so grounded, you'll always find her on the farms rather than, in the cities. So this is something, which she has been a bigger cause, which she has been running. So really wonderful. I know Chandra ma'am has been, very, very deeply involved into the probably you can say the other side of the table as a regulator, a lot of, times into these kind of initiatives. And again, Neeraj, who has been representing us today, on behalf of Bombay Stock Exchange. And I know, ESG reporting and all those things, are really, really important, and for the corporate especially. And again, how the entire world is looking at India in terms of ESG practices is something, which is upcoming, and how in this all situations, the boards are evolving, the directors' roles are evolving. I think we are here to discuss on all those aspects. So first, my question will be to all three of you one by one, as to what has been your journey, into the CSR or ESG. What have been your thoughts on that as a board leader, or what would you be like to share on this, particular aspect? And then I'll take up the question answer session. So over to you. I think we should start with Simantini. Over to you.
Well, because my journey really starts with the grassroots. My identity for myself is I'm a farmer's daughter in all sense, not just for my family, but I grew up looking at difficulties of farmers, their families, and rural areas in general. For someone like me to make it to a few boards, indeed, both in terms of time and ups and downs, been a very exciting journey. But instead of telling you my personal story, I would say what made it easier was actually being on various philanthropic boards first, or what are called as NGOs or trusts, development organizations. A lot of people think that the business at the NGO level is laissez-faire, very easy, a two-bit informal, not very focused, not commercially oriented. Some of it is partially true. But one thing I learned by being on some of these boards is that interests of civil society and environment are very often at the top of all other lists. The sole purpose of existence of some of these boards is to do good. Well-being, whatever we are doing, is it contributing to somebody's well-being? Whatever is the focus of that organization. If an organization is working with children, their focus will be children's health, safety, security, education, whatnot. If they're working with women, women's empowerment, maybe microfinance, something. But at the end, what we study as our performance is, have we been able to make a difference to people's lives? Now, if you serve on some of these NGO boards, or even just as a worker, which I did for 15, 20 years, you tend to develop this discipline or focus where you're thinking about how I can add value, how I can do something, be part of some decisions that will inch by inch move their life into desirable direction. And when I got an opportunity to be on the board, frankly, because NGOs in my time, as you rightly said, 40 years, first 10, 15 years of my life, I think NGOs were still thinking about correcting corporate, that corporate are, or the business sector in general, was considered as rather insensitive and cause of pollution, cause of inequities, not having justice to labor, and various issues. How to remind business sector that what they are doing, if it is against the people, if it is conflicting with larger interest of civil society, they were given messages or there were unions, etc. I'm not saying that all the roles was played by NGOs or unions, civil society, media, everybody had a role. But I think slowly, when corporates started funding NGOs, for NGOs to pick up a stand against any injustice made by corporate sector businesses became difficult. And therefore, I thought coming inside the board and showing them what the life is on the other side, and how when you conduct your business, how you're interested in having the cheapest raw material sourced. But what does it mean for a farmer when you're procuring materials? What has gone into making? Most farmers don't even count their labor time. They just
Absolutely,
etc. So I think this focus, bringing the focus of philanthropic board inside a corporate and showing them that. And I must say, once I came to corporate and I've been on various boards, completed my terms with 4 or 5 of them. I'm currently on 5 or 6 boards. You read half the list, I would say. But I am still amazed, and I would like to really submit with all honesty that some of our NGO boards, in terms of governance, for E&S, there certainly will be, but even for governance, I've seen very often far above some of the boards that we see in the corporate.
This is wonderful.
Yeah. So whether minutes of the meetings or action taken reports or raising of issues, debates on discussion on various stakeholders and their perspectives is far more liberally handled than polarizing issues or making them into non-issues and moving on. Very often in corporate, time beginning and end of the meeting is decided. Even if on the paper it is 11 to 1, meeting might wind up even at quarter to 12. In NGOs, it may be other way around. Meeting may be 11 to 1 and it ends up at 6 o'clock in the evening. But discussions and debates are there. So by no means corporate should look at NGO business with an attitude of holier than thou.
Okay, thank you so much. I think yes, now absolutely wonderful perspective, to the boards, and I think not-for-profit boards are still evolving in India. We still, are into very kind of a traditional, the charitable organizations, the societies, and the committees are, dealt with. So not-for-profit boards, especially, are still under a very, high evolution phase, I would say. Now I would come to.
My point was on the contrary, that some of those boards are very high on governance and have evolved. Compared to that, some of the corporate board meetings could be tick marks already orchestrated and end up in having resolutions that were already drafted. There would be hardly any difference between agenda, minutes, action taken, and results.
Yes, absolutely. So I would with this, go to Chandra ma'am. And Chandra, your thoughts on the CSR and how the Indian companies, you see moving from merely compliance under the CSR to ESG, and then we come to Neeraj, for his remarks. Yeah, over to you.
Right. Thanks, Divya. I so completely go with Simantini on what she's been saying. And I very frankly think that if the government had not decided that this has to happen, CSR, ESG would not yet be on the radar of Indian companies at all. When I say this, I also mean including, having independent women directors. This is coming into Indian corporates by mandate. It is not coming in as a voluntary act. It's not like things that they choose to do. They have to do it, and therefore they will comply, and therefore it's happening. So it's happening. I will not say under protest, but it's certainly happening because under duress, rather, shall I say. The thing is that is the whole concentration, and I have seen the reason I'm able to completely agree with Simantini on this is that I've seen NGOs for almost all my professional life in government. I've dealt in the soft sectors, health, education, women and children, panchayats. And, if you stop using terms like governance, which sound very big, basically what are you saying? How do they use manpower? How do you use existing resources with you? And how transparent are you about your financial transactions? And I think you have to give them 100% marks, because out of sheer necessity, they use the resources, they use the manpower, most often is women power, that they have, and they have to keep their accounts, they have to keep their accounts straight, and somehow they manage it. They don't have chartered accountants. But these women in the SHGs, in the smaller groups, or even in the NGOs which are corporate are almost quasi-corporate in almost every way you talk about it. And that includes becoming less than transparent. Whereas if you go to the smaller, what you call we used to call them the self-help groups, now you call them the NGOs, transparency is an absolute, it's a taken. But since we're talking to boards, and since we're talking from the point of view of Indian corporates, I personally would like to say that, instead of trying to teach them what to do, I would suggest you try and become a part of them. And if you are a woman director, I think that is something that you can help push. You see, because there is no environmental, social governance progress if the community that you are working in is not empowered. See, for whatever reasons, you see that most large corporates work with they create another sort of quasi-corporate structure for corporate social responsibility. Whether it's a trust, whether it's a not-for-profit company, that's immaterial. But conceptually, it is in the corporate mindset where, which is sort of very gridlocked. You don't think small, you don't think inclusive, and you don't think that you have to learn from anyone other than yourself. And I think that is something that we need to tackle in corporate India, that inclusiveness. We've all been on boards, and if what is the concept of inclusiveness? Let alone women directors. How do you include the community in which you are working? How do you take their problems into account? You can go in for education and you may even fund everything. But if you are talking to a group where in an area where nourishment is a problem, malnourished children, then the first thing that you need to talk about is nourishment before you come to schools. You've need to know what to balance and what not to balance. So, if you have a CSR goal that says education, 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 and you're spending money on books and teachers and schoolrooms, you're not concentrating on educating the child, which is really the end result that you need to get to. And that can only happen when you decentralize, You see what does happen. And unfortunately, again, with all its efforts, the CSR activity happens only in a certain geographical area, which is convenient to access, where people can go and come within a day, where, you can stay. There's some place where you can stay where it's not difficult. But as a nation, CSR actually should start from the other end, from the worst places, where you start. And if we can actually push corporate India to say that, look, a 10th of your CSR funds, I will use in a place, hilly, tribal, backward, whatever you want to, not necessarily the places closest to your project area, not necessarily the places which are where your executives can go and come back in one day. I think the whole concept of what you want to achieve in corporate social responsibility funds needs to be thought out carefully. It's not just spending 2% of the money. That's a thing, because, and I think you'll agree that for a lot of smaller organizations, the ability to spend, they don't have a program which can absorb the kind of money that they can put in. So I think as far as corporates are concerned, as far as board of directors are concerned, the CSR committee cannot just be a committee which is, okay, this is how much we made, this is how much we have to give, and this is what we will, spend. It has to be, you can't outsource. I feel it's not adequate to outsource the CSR activities. You just somehow, you need to work on it just as much as you would work on a project of yours, where you would put your own manager, you would have a VP, you would have a general manager level person who's reporting daily to a structural hierarchy. But so until this becomes an activity which is part, okay, I won't say that. Let me say, we have to work towards making ESG or corporate social responsibility as much a part of the company's activities as anything else.
Amazing. This is something different perspective. Wonderful.
And because at the moment it is just something you create something which you don't bother about except once, twice a year, hand them the money, and presumably they will do what they want to do. But you are not, as a company, paying much attention to it. You're just hoping that whoever is running that person, and I'm sure they're competent, that's not the question. But if you say that corporates have to be involved, then corporates have to be involved. You can't outsource it,
Correct.
That is something which I feel, since we are at the beginning in terms of history of the corporate social responsibility era, maybe we would like to think of these approaches.
Amazing. Wonderful. Thank you so much for these insights. And now I would like to know, Neeraj ji, from your perspective, as to why ESG is important, and I would say why ESG in the boardrooms today is a non-negotiable item, or it should be an agenda. So your thoughts on that? Yeah, over to you.
Thank you, Divya. I think first of all, let me thank Mentor My Board and all your group for this, providing us this opportunity. And I think there has been a fantastic discussion prior to what I have spoken. Both Chandra ma'am and Seema ma'am have really set the tone. So, I mean, I will, and I also sit on some of our boards, which is on BSE boards, BSE related subsidiaries, etc., and joint ventures. So, see what's happened. I mean, if we really look at this whole topic of ESG, and partly it was also referred to by Chandra ma'am, as a nation, we do believe in some form of charity, a lot of us, majority of us, and like isko de diya, usko de diya, etc. But as a corporate, if we understand what the government has been trying to do, it's a nudge. So there was this nudge which was provided, and a lot of people, and see the kind of questioning, if you see the trace, this when the 2% rule first came, and then how much of debate and discussion took place. Thankfully, we are off all that, and corporates have also understood that this is required. So that's the big positive. When I look at SEBI, for example, on the other side, in the sense, I mean, we as a society, we are happy to give donate to temples or all these kind of things, but giving to a third party, which is an NGO, I mean, essentially the challenge was always credibility and all those kind of things. But there is a lot of fantastically good work that's also happening on that side. So gradually, as this opens up, I'm sure this will be very, very important. The other piece I want to just talk about is, see, as policymakers, our role is to ensure that how do we develop the framework for ESG for corporates. So if that be the question, what do we do? Things like advocacy. Now that's a very big thing, because as exchanges and along with SEBI, there's something called the business responsibility report, incidentally, which is prescribed by SEBI for corporates. So top 1,000 corporates, etc., that's prescribed. But recently that's also been changed. So the name nomenclature has been changed to also include sustainability in that. Okay. And as I said, the nudge approach essentially is that first you put it for top 100, then you put it for next 500, then next 1,000, etc., etc. and also make it mandatory. So, because what happens is getting things implemented in a country like ours takes time, but nevertheless we have reached there. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is that whether we like it or not, the future of investing is responsible investing. Other countries have already moved towards that. Other jurisdictions, for example, Europe, responsible investing is, particularly ESG, is a very, very big topic, and investors shun companies, particularly in sectors where they feel, which includes petroleum and all these kind of things, which are supposedly called the sin sectors. So that's the other piece. So effectively, you have, or cigarettes and all those kind of things. So, and first Europe was certainly the pioneer there. Now US after that has adopted, of course, not to the extent as Europe, and Asia is gradually getting into it. And we understand that, these are important things. Having said that, countries like India, the concept has not really taken off as much in terms of the investments.
Correct.
And because people here are still chasing returns, we are still bothered that the interest rate of fixed deposits has fallen to 6% or 5%, whatever, 5.5. Okay, whereas 5.5 is like a dream percentage for an American or a European, etc., etc. So of course, I mean, there are various factors. I don't want to get into that of what is right, what is wrong. I mean, it's all relative to each country's economy. But the limited point is, with this kind of a framework, it is important that what do companies need to do? How do they do it? And we as policymakers, so for example, there are norms of UNCTAD, UNCTAD. There is an organization called Global Reporting Initiative. Now, all these are into ESG kind of reporting for corporates, and we have tied up with all of them. We have been part, so UNCTAD has something called the social stock exchanges. So we have been part of all these initiatives. We have a tie-up with GRI to actually provide standards to corporates, because that's the way to transform. And hopefully,
Absolutely.
with that, things can this thing. So I'll stop here. I mean, because I'm sure there'll be other points that you
Yes. So Sumantini, go ahead. You're on mute.
I want to go beyond this compliance standards and whatever. As board, what is the role of a board? Is to ensure business growth, profitability, return on investment, do well in general. लोगों का पैसा डूबना नहीं चाहिए, अच्छा होना चाहिए, कारोबार अच्छा होना चाहिए. This is the board. What is independent director doing on the board? Keep that role is, I think, of a conscience keeper. We are in the board on behalf of all the others who are not in the board. Civil society in general, various parts of it, whether farmers or children, women, the entire civil society can be divided into whatever. And mute spectators like environment, because it doesn't speak. In the board, you're speaking on their behalf. If somebody is hitting tree, he is not going to come here and tell you tomorrow breathing is going to be a problem. You tell that on behalf of the environment. So we are in the board as independent directors to raise issues of concern of everyone else who's not in the board. What are today concerns of everyone else who's not in the board? कि भाई ये company हमारे को तकलीफ नहीं देना चाहिए. They should pay us well. They should not pollute our rivers. They should not, clog our respiratory system. They should not. वो लोग बोलते कि चीजें महंगी कर देते हैं. Look, you go to nearer any MIDCs, everything will be more expensive than little bit in the village. So creating this dualities and then going back, and so everybody loves to put up filters in the Anganwadis by first polluting the rivers. First create relative poverty and then have a poverty alleviation program. So I would say that as independent director of the board, our role is to ensure that my business is not doing anything in such a way that it will negatively affect anybody. It's much easier when it is tangible, like cutting of trees or something, which you can go and count and pay the fine or whatever. A lot of social norms are affected by industrial growth. there are impacts on diversity in the area, Sanskriti, us area ka culture, lot of things do change. What are the things that the way we do are negative? For example, real estate companies, the wind energy companies, various companies acquire lands. What is the impact of land acquisition on land holding pattern, livelihoods of farmers? So one could go in this, all the chemical industries will have to worry about water pollutions. You name an industry, and or even those who think that they're green sector companies, they will have some or the other undesirable impacts which they may or may not know. So when your business is either directly, indirectly, by design or by default or by inadvertently creating anything negative, first your responsibility to point out, correct your business. Everybody loves to go and do CSR. Oh, उनको एजुकेशन नहीं है, उनको पैसा नहीं है, उनको कैटरेक्ट ऑपरेशन करना है. भाई तुम्हारा देखो ना पहले. Is your business right? Are you doing things in a manner? You go to any area, villages nearby, any industrial town, and you will know a whole lot of issues that are created by industrial growth. And particularly each sector has certain overlapping issues with the stakeholders in that area. सबसे पहले इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर करके काम क्या है? भाई सर ये रिस्क तो कम करो. Risk is one thing, definitely no stock exchanges like. Raise these issues as risk to the business. No business likes risk because आपका share price ही down हो जाता है. Even speculations are like that. So look at the life cycle of your business. Identify issues of E, S, and G. Are you inadvertently creating any environmental issue by even putting up a road and leaving the rubbles behind? Excessively using energy, affecting transport of the area, affecting security issues of the transporting in the area. There could be many. So what are the, even inadvertently, if you are causing anything, even for the long term, today's civil society is getting wiser. No more they shut. They even change government after they see. So apna to business to kuch bhi nahi uske samne. If people think your business is not good for us, they will anyway raise it against your business. If you as independent director fail to raise it on their behalf in the board. So in the board, my position is always ki bhai jaakar ke aage tumhe ye face karna hai. Can I raise this flag and take bhai this is the issue that you might face, because this is an ESG issue, and if you ignore it, you will have it. So our job as independent director is to minimize negative impact and optimize positive impacts. If our businesses can create impacts, can we outsource something to women self-help groups, as madam was saying? But no, everybody likes to do this kind of paternalistic things of going out and distributing and doing charity. CSR has become equal to charity and philanthropy. No, your dharma as business is SROI. Is there return on investment? And is there social return also on in your investment? Nobody puts money in the business to do charity. उनको करना है तो charity को पैसा देते, आपको क्यों देते? They have put share, they have paid money for buying shares with the hope that they will get some dividend. They will get dividend only if business growth. Business will grow only if there are no risks. There will be no risk only if you've been raising ESG issues. You don't raise those issues and your business will have a problem tomorrow.
Correct. So well connected.
Director cautioning them and studying the solution and prescribing those solutions, and not becoming another NGO to solve the issues of that. They will do their business very well. If you do your business very well, they will become jobless. In fact, NGOs will become jobless if you were not creating all these problems.
Correct. Thank you so much. And I think I would like to, with this come to Neeraj, your thoughts on how you have been observing, the CSR or the ESG transformation in Indian companies, Indian boards today. And apart from that, one quality, which I would like to, ask, or one skill set, which a women director, because here we are talking on a women directors conclave, that a women director should build so that she's capable on being on the boards of such companies who are very, very aggressively, working on ESG and who have high standards of ESG reporting. So what are the qualities, those kind of companies can look at women, when they are, looking at them as the directors on the boards? So yeah, Neeraj, over to you.
So I'll tell you, I'll just start with some data
Please.
points, which is essentially relating to all the listed companies. So first is about women directors. How many, what is the general scene in corporate India? Okay, I think this will be very interesting. So that is the reason. So the good part is there are only, out of 2,666 companies, there is only 1% which will not have women directors. So that's really credible. Okay, so this is what Chandra ma'am was mentioning, that, even, so this is, I mean, I'm just trying to take the concept from there that this nudge has helped. But the other heartening things is that less than 1/3 directors, also 61% of that population has less than 1/3 of women directors. That means they have more than one. Okay. 1/3 women directors, there are around 660 companies, which is approximately 25%. And between, and this is among independent directors. So, the data from that perspective is better. The other piece, when you are talking about, when we see corporate India, they are adopting. So as Seema madam was talking about, so several good companies, although yes, they may be in sectors which may be causing pollution, but there are certain companies, and I'm not here, I'm just trying to I'll just take names, but it's not an issue of preference, but things like companies like Mahindra or Tata's, particularly Tata's, or, their annual reports. So they have to come out with a detailed business responsibility report. And here I'll link it to the concept of foreign investors. If the foreign investors come, the share price valuation that is done essentially provides much higher returns. And foreign investors today preferring this sector is certainly seen in several of these companies, and their reports, they have adapted the reports in such a manner where every detail is provided, because finally, what are you giving back to society? The same society that you are dependent on for your water, for resources, for people, etc., etc. So that's the other piece. The third piece I would just like to briefly, because I was doing some my own analysis, and I did some kind of research of for the topic today. So I thought, what is it generally in terms of internationally, what is the scene? So there is a report which I'll probably share with you separately, which is from the German Journal of HR Management, and it is on perceived roles of women directors on supervisory boards. And the few points that emerge from there, from that, it's a detailed research which was done in Germany, that the few points that emerged were that women directors are experts and they are highly qualified. Number one. Number two, they add new perspectives and additional expertise to boardrooms. So that was the other major piece. The second point which came out was that they were perceived as, and this is again from the larger group of others present in the board, they were perceived as de-emotionalizing boardroom discussions. So that's a very interesting piece. And the third piece which came out was that they were perceived as mediators who help strike balance between different opinions on the board. Okay, so this again, while it's more of an aside, but I thought it was important that I should share this. And then coming to corporate social responsibility, on that particular, what emerged was that firms with women directors on supervisory boards have a significantly better social performance than firms with an all-male board. So that is the difference which is brought about. While other factors were also there, like things like, they were seen as more risk averse than less competitive, etc., all those kind of things. But the important point that this research again brought out, one more important point, that with the directors, there was the discourses in the boardrooms essentially reflected points relating to caring, etc. For one, even for whether for environment or even for the employees. So these are, I mean, I'm sure this is when it is true for them. I'm sure this is, I mean, as a male, and as I'm on some of the boards, and one of our companies is also run by a lady who's the managing director of that company. So we have, these are certainly the aspects which have come about. And
Wonderful.
so I'll stop here. Sure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So Chandra ma'am, your thoughts on, the qualities of women leaders, or, because we are almost coming to the close of this session. It's 4 o'clock, almost 4 o'clock. So I would like to, have your thoughts on, what are the, because I know you have, had a wonderful career as a, IAS officer, and you have always seen, both the sides of the coins. So how you see women emerging on the boards, what are the, skill sets they have or they can build on, because we have a lot of aspiring women directors here joining, a lot of directors who are already there on the boards of the companies. And again, they're looking for the, bigger opportunities in the bigger boards. So what one piece of advice you would like to give them, and some real, experiences which you would like to share? You're on mute, ma'am.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think that one piece of advice which I give women, young women, whether they're in government or wherever they are, is that, we really don't have role models for women in most areas of life. Okay. Apart from homemaker, we have no role models. I mean, Indira Gandhi and Mamata Banerjee are not, we're nowhere in that thing. So what happens as a matter of fallback is that we tend to look at the men who have succeeded, men who have risen, men who have contributed to be our role model. And I think without thinking about it, we tend to copy, we tend to emulate these men. And I would like to tell them that, look, try, consciously make sure that you never become a second-rate man. You always remain a first-rate woman, which means that when you get into a board, retain those aspects which Neeraj was also talking about, that, we don't look at things the same way. Whatever people may say, women have a different perspective.
Correct. 100%.
And bring that perspective. And it is difficult. The one thing that I will say here is that from my own experience and the experience I hear younger women say, is that it's difficult to be a woman. You are in a minority. Okay. You're in a minority wherever you go. And it's just getting to the point, and it'll take some time before women actually are equal in every which way. For example, it'll take us years to reach the place where Germany has at the moment. But you are there, and the biggest contribution you can make for women and for your board is for you to bring out and talk in the manner that you would as a woman, not try and talk in the way that your male colleagues do. And push your point. By all means, do not hesitate to, don't hesitate to be aggressive. Some of us tend to, when we are in a minority, we tend to withhold, we tend to sort of draw back a bit, because we really don't want to be, we don't want to be conspicuous. You're always worried about what you're saying. But stick to what you're saying and retain that sense of empathy, that concern. Most women are concerned about the environment around them. By environment, I don't mean climate. I mean the people, the methodology, the kind of the systems. And I think, as Shrimantini said, that you must make sure that your eye is on that, because that is your biggest asset, that you have a certain vision which the others don't have.
Correct.
And I think that to be true to yourself first, and you will always be true to whatever job you're doing. Don't try to change yourself. That is the first thing that I would like to say. And I would also like to suggest that if we are going into CSR, try to see that we don't outsource to some sort of a monolithic hands distance entity. If you look at the Tatas, you look at Reliance, you look at any Wipro, any of them, they have their own foundations, their trusts, their whatever it is. But the company itself is only so long as they're giving their money. I doubt if Tata Consultancy knows anything about the CSR. I'm just saying Tata Consultancy from the top of my head. I don't know anything about the company, but one read recently about it. I don't know. You see, the company itself must get involved. The management of the company must get involved, not just the board. And this I would like to say this, that if you want a good ESG, if you want a good CSR component, then management must get involved, not just the board. Today, there is the board, there is the money, and there is the organization which is doing the CSR.
Correct. It doesn't percolate down to the management.
The management is kept at arm's, I mean, it is at arm's distance. Its only job is to make enough money so that you can give that 2% and not suffer. That's the point. But somehow we have to try and see that the management is also involved, that they understand what is happening, and that they therefore are more empathetic to what needs to be done.
Absolutely.
And I would also like to say, and this is something that I would like to generally put out there, that in addition to whatever there was regulations in CSR, I think if we could somehow bring in that every corporate should take a geographical area far away from where it was, which genuinely needs development infrastructure, development help, and make it, mandating is a bad word, I know, but make companies take up these faraway places, because, speaking from Maharashtra, maximum CSR used to be around Thana. Now it is just beyond Thana, otherwise around Aurangabad, Kolhapur, Pune, Nagpur, Amravati, whereas people forget that there are places like Buldana, Akola, Chandrapur, Jalna, in Jalna, of course, I won't mention, but, Osmanabad, Latur, and so on, which need attention. And I think one of the concerns that we would like to bring is to bring the entire geography of this country under in focus, not just small areas.
Absolutely.
And
Point well taken. Point well, absolutely well made. Thank you so much for these insights. So, Simantini ma'am, any last thoughts on that? And then we, move to Neeraj ji, and then we wind up.
I think there is this question about how women can play this role better, as whether you're women director or you're independent director on the board, and the qualities. I think being analytical and identifying a couple of crucial issues to business, not to development, because according to me, this I slightly differ from what Chandra madam has said. That is the job of the government. A lot of time by doing that, we are making government irresponsible. So I wouldn't get into that. I would say that clean up your own business operation. Are your SOPs lined up in a way that you are not creating mess around? So I would say that pick up some issues and keep focusing on that in every meeting. It could be health and safety of your employees. Now, this is the subject. Before we start talking about malnutrition in Meghat, people understand that health and safety issues on the shop floor are also a way of reflecting or by projecting your value system and your priorities. So in every meeting, if we make them present on, say, fatalities or accidents, near accidents, if we ask an analysis on near accident, there'll be a lot of things that we can clear up. So I would promote CSR in the companies. Philanthropy is very different. I promote philanthropy, but that should be done at the cost of employees' own money, not at the shareholders' money. Do for shareholders whatever is good for shareholders. So return a social value in such a way the stakeholder relationship improves, your image, your brand image, your intangible assets. That doesn't mean business as usual. Go much beyond business. Raise the bar.
Absolutely.
Trustworthy. That people will believe in you. People will have faith in you. They will say you will not do anything bad to us. Then in bad times, they will stand up by you. Otherwise, any amount of charity, when something happens next to your factory, they're still going to beat you up. But if they know that there is a win-win, that as you're growing, that's why in my consulting firm, we say grow as you give and give as you grow. So if you give negative vibes, you will get those back. So while conducting your own business, have the ability to respond to business issues or issues arising out of your business, which affect environment and social issues or sustainability.
Absolutely. Point.
But if you know that every meeting this lady is going to come and ask me health and safety things, people will first start, working on those numbers backward. But once you want them to present, don't present me anything else. Just present me fatality cases and tell me in the next quarter how there will be no accidents. What 5 things that you did, 2 things that you did. And ask next time, how did you do those things and how did they affect? And go and check sometimes when they take you for visits. So focus on critical issues to business operations that will have inadvertent effect on environment and sustainability of others, not just yours. Because if other sustainability is affected, yours will certainly, if not today, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Amazing. Wonderful. So yes, Neeraj, in fact, I'll tell you just, when Simantini said about the trust, which the companies need to build. And I remember in the morning when, Ashish Chauhanji had come and he spoke about, creating trust, that the businesses need to create more trust amongst the stakeholders. And stakeholders, as we all know, it's not only your shareholders, but again, a community at large. So what are your thoughts and, the closing remarks on this topic? And then, we formally close the session on the, especially the corporates and, or how they, really can look at the ESG and CSR.
So
one step or one critical point which you feel you would like to add on and make it. Thank you.
So I actually echo what has been said earlier by both Chandra ma'am as well as Seema ma'am. See, so in our CSR committee, I mean, recently, there is, because I mean, this year's topic, of course, everything was relating to pandemic.
Correct.
I'll just narrate something and then I'll stop on that. So the whole point was that we as management, as you rightly said, we came with some proposal relating to, let us say, so what should we contribute to? Oxygen cylinders or this, that, etc., all those kind of things. So because this essentially we thought, let's do something. And the standard ones, then finally we got some proposals from some hospitals. So we just put up a few Mumbai hospitals. And as was mentioned, the board members, and this is headed by one of the ladies on our board member.
Wow.
So the CSR committee. So the point that came out is that first is we should not only do in large cities. If we have to do something, let us go down, find out details, and find out smaller groups which are doing fantastic jobs. So for example, we came to know that there is a group of doctors in West Bengal who are essentially volunteering and providing care in interiors of Bengal. Now, so it's not really a hospital, but then we need to provide them something. So similarly, we got proposals all across the country, and then we said, okay, and then how much to pay? So each one, someone had X demands, others had Y demand. And then finally the board decided that leave that to the chair of the committee. The chair of the committee finally said, so that instead of selecting, let us give to all of them. Even if you give some smaller amount, but at least, finally we can't really solve all the problems, but let us at least solve that. So I'll stop there. The limited point was, this was headed by a lady. Empathy was shown. And finally, while, the whole point was that distribution, how do you do distribution? I mean, these are simple things. It has been a learning for us as management. I mean, I'm just trying to tell you that. So, and then finally, on the corporate side, almost everyone is doing something, but the real takeaway from today's discussion, at least for me, and I guess I'm sure for a lot of us, is that
Absolutely.
the smaller and the interiors are also there. It's not only Mumbai, Chennai, Delhi, etc. There is much more beyond that for us to even look at these kind of initiatives. So thank you. I would stop here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So there is one question which has come for Simantini. Simantini, I hope you're there. Your video is paused. Yeah, you're there. So how to convince boards on spending CSR when the focus of the boards is only money making?
How not doing this will not help you making money.
Okay.
Connect it with ROI. That's the only way it works.
100%.
You have to do things also that are related to your business cycle. So just for me, it is ability to respond to everything that your business cycle incorporates and go beyond business operations and raise the bar of looking at day after tomorrow's business, not today's.
Correct. Exactly. Just before the session, we had the boards in the changing new age businesses. So how in the changing environment, the businesses are changing and you have to evolve, and boards have to be really visionary on, creating those kind of decisions well in time.
Yeah. So because everybody talks about, say, it's become a talk of every conference that tomorrow there are going to be wars for water. So everything in environment and social, tomorrow they will point back to civil society, will look the role that corporates have played. So if you're not water plus today and taking away drinking water from children and women in the next door village, then they are going to hold you responsible. So are you conserving water? Are you doing rainwater harvesting in your own building? Are you using energy at the cost of someone else, or you have your own? These things are going to matter. So becoming as self-sufficient and not eating out of limited resources that are for the entire society.
Amazing.
So next decade is going to have so many shortages. So see, next year also, most of the companies which will perform better are the ones which treated not just employees, but service providers in the COVID times with humanitarian. Those only will do well.
Correct.
So this
Point well
pandemic
taken.
has shown the way that when there is crisis, they see, are you human enough? Are you only transactional? If you are, then you have it. So the only way to tell the board, भाई ये नहीं करने का क्या क्या हो जाएगा देखते हैं चलो, अगर अपन ये नहीं करते तो क्या होगा, और ये करते हैं तो क्या होगा. So for me, just philanthropic things of going into some corner because it is underdeveloped and contributing for CSR, frankly, in my opinion, of 15 boards that I very closely work, and as my clients, I work with them, it does not appeal to them. We pay taxes to government to fill the gaps, to give basic services to poor. So if government's sole purpose of existence is that, and they're omnipresent and they're failing to do it, your 2% you can at best show the way, but then it will have to be shown in a way that others will follow. So be involved with government right from the beginning. But I doubt whether something totally disconnected with your business cycle will continue to do well for too long, because this year's 2% amount may not be next year's 2% amount. If your business is going down, then the amount will reduce.
Correct. So that has to be connected with the business
on turnover and not profit. The companies who are not making profits have a more soul searching to do, not the companies which are making profit. I mean, they can do philanthropy, but if you are failing to basic business, there is some stakeholder that you have inadvertently put your foot on.
Thank you so much. Absolutely wonderful insights from all of you. And on behalf of entire team of Mentor My Board, I would like to thank you all, Chandra ma'am, Simantini, Neeraj ji, for being here with us, sharing your great insights. Absolutely, these are thought-provoking, discussions, interactions, brainstorming sessions, wherein as leaders of the organization, as leaders of the businesses, and as leaders of the board, we have huge responsibility to cater to. And I think, absolutely each and every interaction what we had on this panel were, wonderful and thought-provoking. So thank you on behalf of, entire team of Mentor My Board for being here.